And a very good evening to you, and welcome to tonight's edition of Politics 101. I want to welcome everybody onto the program. Coming to you from Boston. And a little rainy today in and around the East Coast, Georgetown. But it's Christmas time, and since we were little boys and girls, we learned that we have two rainy seasons, May, June, and Christmas rain, as they used to say in the old days, December, January. So it's not surprising that we're having some of those rainy days in Guyana as we move closer to Christmas Day. Yesterday was very hot, and then today we had the rain and cloudiness and so on. But we're accustomed to that. It's better than some parts of the world where they have to deal with snow and all kinds of cold, below zero temperature and so on. Diana, in the tropics. Welcome to Politics 101. Just make sure that you do the honors, share the link, remind everybody that we're on. Big show tonight. We have Mr. Stanley Ming on first. Stanley Ming, of course, is a former member of parliament for the People's National Congress Reform. He was one of the founders of the reform group of the PNC, which is now PNC Reform. Of course, he's better known as a businessman, and these days I notice they've put philanthropist next to his name, but I always refer to Stanley as a patriot. We're going to have Stanley on first to talk about the significance and importance of Aubrey Norton's election as leader of the People's National Congress Reform. And then later on, we're going to have the man himself, Aubrey Norton, the leader. He's going to be on to do his first interview with Politics 101. If you remember, it was on this program months ago that he announced his candidacy. And it was on this program last Thursday that he did his last public interview, as far as we understand, before the election on Saturday. So welcome everyone, if you're in Guyana, if you're in the hinterland, because I know some people joining us from as far as Northwest. If you're in the wider Caribbean, welcome down to Politics 101. And if you're in North America, we have some very loyal viewers there in North America and Europe, of course. Welcome. Welcome to Politics 101. Let me bring in right away Brother Ming, Stanley Ming, and let's get a move on. Stanley, good night.
Many thanks for having me on your program this evening. It's a privilege.
And thank you for coming on. Your first time. We want to talk tonight about the significance of Aubrey Norton's election. You've been in and around the PNC for some time. You were part of the reform group and one of the founders of the reform group, along with people, as I remember it, Eric Phillips, Jerome Khan, some of the names I remember. And you served in Parliament under Mr. Hoyt. And then I guess you retired from politics, but I know you've been keeping in touch with what's going on nationally. You were one of the advocates last year during the election period, pointing us to the importance of that voters list. And you kept giving us a lot of statistics to show that that list could not lead to anything good. Let's start off before we go on to talking about Aubrey Norton. For you to talk a little bit about the importance of that voters list and what you found out as you made that part of your advocacy and your study last year?
David, first of all, as you rightly pointed out, I was the leader of the reform group, which was established just before the 2001 elections. And you call some of the names. Jerome Khan was a part of it. Peter Ramsarup was part of it. Eric Phillips was a part of it. George Norton was a part of it. Supriya Singh, and quite a few more. But those are the ones that were very well known. We were in a partnership with the PNC, and that subsequently morphed into PNC reform. And I went into Parliament as a member of the reform group, but we were separate from the PNC as a political grouping, if you want to put it that way. But for the purpose of the electoral activity, we were in a partnership. Now, one of the things that I want to say, David, is that what happened last Saturday is a very good omen for the future of Guyana. What you had there was, from all I understand and what I saw, was that you had a very democratic process where the elections for the leader of the party were done in a very transparent manner. What came out of it was that it was very clear that the younger generation wanted a new set of faces of younger people, and that is what happened. And I personally believe that if you had that sort of electoral system and process in any political party at this point in time, that the old guard will be rejected, because the younger generation are not prepared to continue with the politics of yesteryear. They want something that is more progressive, people that are more objective and not playing partisan politics and everything becomes a political football. The younger generation, I think, are fed up with that. And that is a good omen. Obviously, it is a start of a process that has to continue, not only in the PNC, but in all the other political parties, of developing a new culture, which I've been talking about since I got involved in politics. What we do here, David, is that we keep looking back all the time, right? We keep looking back. And fortunately or unfortunately, if we keep driving along the road when we drive every day in our cars or whatever, and you keep looking in the rearview mirror, you're going to have a head-on accident because you keep looking back. And for me, we all know, if you talk to any Guyanese on the street corner, anywhere in this country, they know what's going on. There's nobody in Guyana that you can fool about what's the reality of the political situation in Guyana. So I don't need to regurgitate that. But what I want to say to you, in terms of you talk about the list, mathematically, with 750,000 people, and we know what the population percentages of the different age groups, a list of more than 450,000 people cannot be possible that are eligible to vote. You don't need to be a mathematical genius. That is a simple mathematical calculation. 750,000, it's about 450,000 will be eligible to vote. So any list that is bigger than that has names that should not be on that list. And what we should be doing in the interest of everybody, not any political party, is to have a new voters list that is done very professionally, to determine what the real list ought to be. And thereafter, once you have a system that is, again, modern, in Jamaica, David, I'm sure you know, when you have elections in Jamaica, within a couple of hours after they close the poll, on the same night of the elections, you get the results. And for all I know, there's that the major parties that contest it, they shake hands and they accept the results. Why? Because they know the system gives a true representation of what transpired. Now, nothing stops us from doing that. I remember back in 2011, Mr. Hugh Chumley, who was a very close friend of mine, God bless his soul, knew the gentleman who established that system in Jamaica. His name was Mr. Danville Walker. And Hugh Chumley and I went to Jamaica and met with Mr. Danville Walker. And he showed us the system and he showed us how it worked. And I was very impressed that that system was developed in a neighboring country in the Caribbean. And Hugh asked him to come to Guyana at his own expense to show the GCOM here what is possible. And he said to us, and I have no reason to doubt him, that because of our population, he could have generated a completely new list if he had the hardware and the support in country to have a new list and a completely modernized system within 6 months. And they came here, they met with GCOM at the time, but our people there said they were not interested in it at that time for whatever reason. I'm not going to debate why or why not. But we can get a modern system if we're serious.
Well, Stanley, what do you think is the obstacle? I know it's political, but give us a sense from your standpoint. What do you think is the obstacle to doing at the national level what the PNC was able to do on Saturday at the party level?
It is just the will to do it, David. There's no scientific reason that we can't do it. I mean, I always remember. Could you imagine if we were India with a population of 1.4 billion and we held an election? You might have 5 years to get the results.
Yes,
if you use the system that we have, right? So it is nonsensical that we cannot have a system for 750,000 people. It has to be just a lack of will to do it, and that has to be something that every Guyanese has to push for, because every 5 years we can't continue to have this convulsions that we have. It doesn't all go well for the future of the country, and we have to get that done sooner rather than later.
Aubrey Norton said that one of his priorities as he takes office is to agitate for a new voters list. Do you think he's on track in terms of making that a priority?
Well, the thing is, David, I don't think the right word here is agitation. I think what we have to do, and from where I sit, I believe that the current president, Dr. Irfan Ali, is serious about moving the country forward as an individual. I'm not necessarily saying that the entire group that he represents. Everything that he's done so far tells me that he wants to see Guyana move forward. But and I know, and I'm not going to get into details, there are other players within the ranks of the political parties of Guyana that don't share the same opinion or opinions of the leader. And you know how that works in many other countries. And I want to believe that Mr. Norton, who I've known for over 20 years, I've known Aubrey since before the turn of the century. I've known him in politics and outside of politics. And based on what I know of Aubrey over the years of dealing with him, and I have a lot of dealings with him outside of politics, on every discussion we've had, he's kept his word. And to the best of my knowledge, I've never heard him caught up in any kind of questionable activity in terms of corruption. I mean, that's what I know, right? If people know otherwise, well, they know that. But for me, he's kept his word, and I'm not aware of any corrupt deals that he's been in. And that is a very good situation for him. And he has to build on the fact that he is a man of his word, and he has to convince everybody that he will look out, which he said. But politicians tend to say all the right things when they get into office, that he is going to look out for all Guyana, right? But we hear that very often. So we have to give him the time, like the current president, who, again, I have seen, is that he's reaching out to everybody, whether you are African ancestry, Indian ancestry, Chinese ancestry. The current president, in my opinion, is trying his best to bring the country together. And I would encourage both Dr. Ali and Mr. Norton to start a new concept of engagement rather than trying to create a lot of animosity between the two political groups. And I would urge Mr. Norton and Mr. Ali, let us stop this antagonistic behavior that we've had for the last how many decades. Because, David, one of the things that bothers me every day when I think about Guyana, we are 750,000 people. We have about 400,000 people that are working. If you divide that in two, you got 200,000. Guyana cannot develop 10% of its resources with 200,000 people. We need within the next 10 years, maybe 2 to 3 million people. So what are we going to do? We're going to keep the country divided. And, what we have is a system right now that says 51% is equal to 100 and 49 equals 0. That is the mathematics of what we have. The government has control of everything, and the opposition, which is almost the same amount, 49%, has nothing. And that is a recipe for disaster, right? I would like to see Dr. Ali and Mr. Norton at a table discussing this pie that we call Guyana. How could we manage it so that every morning when every Guyanese wakes up and thinks about the future, he says, well, listen, this pie that is called Guyana, I have a stake here. My family will get the opportunity to have a good education, to have a decent home, and to be able to enjoy a simple life. Guyanese are not very greedy people, or they don't want big yachts and executive jets. Guyanese want to educate their children. They want to be able to put food on the table, and they want to be able to go home at night and sleep in comfort and in security. Guyanese are very simple people. And I know of no Guyanese that is not willing to work. David, Guyanese have left this country and gone to every part of the world and excelled in everything, right? Not bringing second. I mean, we've had secretary generals, we've had people at the highest level in the world court. Guyanese are very capable people. We don't need people coming from European countries or North American countries to tell us what to do. In a lot of cases, we are the people that tell them when they come here as consultants exactly what needs to be done. All they do is sign the name and collect a big check. It's the Guyanese people that we have to start embracing. We also have a problem with ourselves. A lot of Guyanese, when they hear even their own ethnic groups, in case coming back to Guyana, here, man, you left here in the 1970s, when things were bad, you're coming back now. When we got oil, you better go back there. That is silly, right? We do it with our own people. We have to encourage Guyanese, whether they're African ancestry, Indian ancestry, to come back home, form strategic alliances with the ones that are here. And our people in the Caribbean, I said at a previous discussion, if you were to look at the Caribbean and Guyana, we are the same. We have the same social and cultural behavior. So why are we, leaving our Caribbean people out? That's the first place we should be looking at. And thereafter, we should be looking at Brazil and Venezuela, who are our neighbors. And stop this nonsense about rejecting, because 750,000, David, cannot develop Guyana. Let me give you some other information that I know.
Okay.
I went to Dubai on several occasions. Dubai in 1970 had a population of 270,000 people. We had 745,000 people in that time. We had 3 times the population. That's when they discovered oil. And the people of Dubai and the government knew that they could not develop the resources that were there. And they invited the world, but the conditions were stringent, right? I wouldn't go into any great detail. But you can go to Dubai tomorrow if you want, and you can register a company and you can do business. But guess what? You cannot vote and you cannot partake in the political affairs of the country unless you live there for 20 years and you speak the language. So you cannot come and very quickly become an Emirati and say you're going to get involved. Now, Dubai today, and I was there just about 2 years ago when I went to Formula One, has a population of 10 million people. Of the 10 million, 8.7 are foreigners and 1.3 are Emiratis. And what happened? Those people came in with their knowledge and expertise and capital. They invested with the Emiratis, and there are very stringent rules about that. You have to be involved. The local people got to be involved at every level in terms of investments. And today, Dubai, with the population and with the number of people, guess what percentage of their economy depends on oil. They were 100% back in the 70s and 80s. Today, Dubai depends on oil for 1% of their GDP.
Wow.
They have transformed the country from totally dependent on oil to now almost no dependence on oil. And you look at another country that you know and I know, in 1996, Rwanda, right,
Yeah.
had a genocide. 800,000 people were massacred in 3 months, 90 days. But can you imagine killing 9,000 of your own people every day, right? That's the whole population of Guyana, right? Today, Rwanda, under the leadership of Paul Kagame, saw the merit. Let us stop this nonsense about attacking each other, or two tribes, the Hutus and the Tutsis. Let us come together. And he brought them together. And today, Rwanda is termed the Singapore of Africa. And if anybody wants to see what they've done, they have done nothing short of a miracle. And why? Because they have come together as a people. Two tribes that killed 900,000 of each other are now working together to build that country and to make it great. Now, Guyana has, again, the resources second to none, David. We should be one of the best countries in the world, right? And I'm not saying this lightly. You know what is the size of Singapore? Singapore is 277 square miles. Guyana is 83,000. We are 300 times the size of Singapore. Singapore doesn't even have water. They have to buy that from Malaysia. They have to buy their water from Malaysia. Singapore is a rock, but you know what? They had a leader by the name of Lee Kuan Yew, who demanded nothing but the best from these people. And he inherited from Malaysia, which is where they became independent, which was Indians from India, Malays who were the local people, and the Chinese. And the first thing he did, he said, look, you can stay at home and talk whatever language you want. But if we are going to work as a nation with the West, we all got to speak English. And he made English the national language. And today, and I have the figures here, I want to share it with the people of Guyana. In 1960, Singapore had a population of 1.6 million. We had a population of 560,000. In 2014, we were 735,000, and they were 5.5 million, of which 2 million were foreigners. In that little country, they recognized that to develop what they needed to do, they needed foreign expertise and capital. And they brought in 2 million people, right? And at that time, Guyana's GDP in 1966 was 348,000. They were $348. They were $566, 1.6 times Guyana. In 2012, we were 3,584, and they were 54,000.
Yeah. So that's a growth there. Stanley, let me take you up on a couple of things that you've mentioned. First, you said that you think that President Ali and Mr. Norton should get together and work together for the best interest of the country. From what you've seen, do you think that's possible? Given the kind of environment?
I think not only is it possible, I think it is absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
Absolutely necessary. Guyana cannot go forward if we continue the way we've been doing for.
Yeah, I get that. But in the present atmosphere, do you think that those two leaders could do what you are asking? And let me push you further. What is it about these two leaders that you think that gives you the optimism that you're expressing here?
Well, again, I can only come to that conclusion from what I've seen. I mean, for instance, let me give you one example. This roadway, this 4-lane highway that is being built from what used to be Sherry Street, now Mandela Avenue, that's now going through to Eccles and beyond, right? I tell people that idea was there since 1970. The document was under the PNC government. I have a copy of the document that defined that roadway. And what I know for sure, after the government change in 1992, I wouldn't call names, but people in the PPP said they don't want to build that because then the PNC is going to get credit for it. Now, I consider that nonsense, right?
Yeah.
I don't care whose idea it was. If it's a good idea, the people who get it done and deliver it is the people who I think should be given the credit, not the idea. getting it done. Now, from the time Dr. Ali got into office, I shared that with him. I said, look, you can create a new corridor that was studied since the 1970s. I sent him the data, and he took one look at it and said, get it done, right? He doesn't care whether it was under Burnham or Hoyt. And there are many other things that I know that are happening that he is trying his best to get it done. Why? Not for him or for me or for you. If those things happen, David, it's for Guyana. And we got to understand now that you don't object because the PNC is doing it or the PPP is doing it. It is being done for Guyana. I mean, take another example that I know about. Just about a year ago, there was a situation where it was said by a senior functionary of the PPP that the new bridge across the Demerara River was going to be built at Versailles, but it landed Versailles on the western side. And the reason for that was that the PNC had sold me the land at a low price, and they were going to now buy it back from me at an astronomical price, so I would get, hundreds of millions of dollars. And when I saw it, I laughed, right? Because that land was bought in the 1990s. There was no talk about a bridge or anything then. And the idea of building a bridge there was since 2011 by the PPP government when Mr. Ramattar was the president. But those are the sort of things that people that are not aware of the truth try to create distrust and to create enmity and to create rifts, right? Just the other day, I said I was addressing a group of women who were doing entrepreneurial work. And a gentleman that was there, Mr. Schumann, said, he always admired what I said about Guyana's future. And he was a fan of mine since the days of racing. And two guys, I don't know their names, I saw it, they wrote objecting to, well, not replying to Mr. Schumann that you're following Stanley Ming, but he's a big scamp. The land he get from the PNC and the land at Parica, it's all a set of crooks he's dealing with. So I put them in their place very quickly. Not that I have time to waste with that sort of stuff, because those people have nothing to do and they just create mischief. So I put on the public domain the number of the transports, the date of the transports. I said you can go to the deeds registry and find out everything about them. They were bought in the 1990s, nothing to do with PNC. I never got a plot of land, David, from the PNC, the PPP, or anybody. I never got, and I never will, because I'm not interested. Right? But that is the kind of mischief that people try to create distrust and disunity in this country. And we have to start marginalizing those people. And a lot of the time they do it not because the leaders of the pack, in this case the PNC and the PPP, are telling them to do it. They think that if they do that, they are going to get kudos from the leaders of the party because they're taking on the other side. But what we have to start doing is educating our masses about the truth and leave the naysayers and the ones that want to create mischief to look like fools, which is what they really are. They're stupid people, right? They behave like the mice and the rats, and they're waiting for the piper to play a tune, and they all run behind him to their own destruction. And I'm pretty confident that the leaders are not, in this case, I'm pretty certain that the PPP did not tell those two idiots, whoever they are, that Stanley Ming got land from the PNC and he wanted stuff like that. They reckon that they will score points. And we have to ignore people like that because they just want to create mischief.
Right. Stanley, let me ask you this. Were you surprised that Aubrey emerged as the leader of the PNC at this particular time?
Not at all, David.
And why not?
Because Aubrey is somebody that deals with the people on the ground at the roots level. I can relate to that because I came from that kind of background. Right? I relate to the ordinary people. And when you go around this country and you listen to the ordinary people, you got to remember the ones that are up there are very few. The ones that are down there are the majority. And what Aubrey is going to set out to do, which I hope, is to represent their interests. You know, they don't have a voice. The people on the ground don't have a voice, right? And I think that the reason that he was successful, they see him as the person that will give them a voice
To
at
give
the
them
level
vote.
that they need to be given.
Should he remove Joe as the opposition leader in Parliament?
David, I don't want to get into the politics of the PNC at all. I mean, I have friends throughout the PNC. Joe is my friend.
Right.
Van West is my friend. I have all the people in the PNC are my friends. Walter
All right.
Lawrence, Ali, everybody, right?
Yes.
That's a political thing. They have
All
to
right.
work
Let
out.
me put it this way: should Aubrey go into Parliament, or should he spend his time outside of Parliament trying to rebuild the party and reconnecting with the people?
No, I think he has to be doing both. He has to be connected to the people, and he has to be in Parliament. I mean, Parliament is where you represent the interests of the other side. I mean, it's not rocket science. He needs to be.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Um, do you think that the PNC should move away from this whole notion of the maximum leader and embrace a more collective leadership kind of approach?
Not just the PNC, David. The world knows that this maximum leader and the maximum leader and the dear leader and stuff, that's nonsense, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, in business, like in my business, I tell people, you know, I do very little at my company. Why? I've empowered my managers to make decisions and to run the company. I hardly do anything in my business anymore, right? Because I am on succession around now. Another 3 years, I'm done, right? I have to ensure that the company and the people who work here will continue to provide a living for their families. I'm not going to be here forever. I'm 70 years this year. If I survive another 3, great, right? But what I'm saying is that this nonsense about the maximum leader should be thrown out the window all across the world, not just Guyana, by all political parties. We need to groom the young people, give them the opportunity to lead and to come up with new ideas. And you know, I saw something which I will pull up here. I read it not too long ago. The gentleman who is the sheikh from Dubai, he says, a great leader creates more great leaders and does not reduce the institution to a single person. And that is what is the recipe for success. You have to create more leaders as quickly as possible so that vision is shared and implemented at the widest level.
Um, do you think that the PNC should go back to going it alone, or should they revert to the coalition politics that brought them to power in 2015?
Well, I think, David, there is a need for political groups to work together, right? You know, siphoning off a couple of people here and there. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me, really. And I would like to see the PPP and the PNC, which are the two behemoths. Those are the two elephants in the room, right? They have to find ways, and you have to start playing games with each other, right? I mean, we're big men, and a lot of what we have happening now in Guyana is a lot of posturing. The time for that is done, right? We need to say, look, we've got billions of dollars coming in from oil in the near future. We got infrastructure that's falling apart all over the country. Drive down all the roads now in disrepair, right? The drainage system is not working. Are you going to exclude half of the population who you call the opposition from being a part of it? I mean, it doesn't make sense. Who's gonna make it happen? Aliens? We're gonna bring in some aliens? We got to get everybody on board this train to work together so that in the not too distant future, we will have a cohesive approach to getting this country going.
You mentioned oil. Do you think that thus far we are doing well as far as handling this newfound oil wealth and all that stuff? How are we doing? There are lots of criticisms about the contract and local content and all of that. But how do you think we are doing thus far?
Well, again, David, whether it is the former government, the APNUFC or the PPP now, we do not have the requisite knowledge to take on the likes of an Exxon and uh, their affiliates. But you know what? And I keep saying this. I tell people that personally, I, Stanley Ming, don't know very much about anything, but I boast that I have friends all over the world that I can call and find out about anything. And you know something, David, you most likely know this. We have Guyanese in the United States, Canada, and further afield that worked for Exxon and the largest oil companies in the world.
Yeah.
But you know what? We don't call on them. We don't call on them because, you know, a lot of us feel that you got to have a white man coming from North America or a European country to tell us what to do. We have a mentality that goes back to the days of slavery, and we have to break ourselves out of it. And we got to recognize that amongst our own people, we have the skills, and we have to stop this nonsense about telling. Let me give you a joke that happened about 3 years ago. Not a joke, a real story. Exxon had an issue with GRA, and the local guy who was representing them was trying to deal with the GRA at the time, some senior person in GRA. And the person looked at the Guyanese and said, "Ma, where you going? Where you coming to sort this out?" And when the guy realized what was being said, he went and got a foreigner, right, who was a white person. And I have nothing against white people, but don't read me wrong. And the guy presented himself knowing nothing about the business about at hand, but he was a white man. And the Guyanese, who was senior, said, "Yes, sir, 3 bags full." Now, that annoys me, David, right? Because our people, Guyanese, have the ability to do almost anything if we give them the chance. We've proved it already all over the world. So why are we shortchanging ourselves?
Yeah.
Right?
Why are
It's a
we?
mindset. It's a mindset. We got to get out of it.
Would you pursue this business of trying to renegotiate the oil contract with Exxon?
Well, the thing is, you know, there's some sanctity in contracts that they say, but the thing that we need to do now, David, is we need to educate Guyanese at every level about the industry because, you know, they talk about local content, right? Now, let me ask you this. You are Exxon, right? You are in Guyana. You have done this business for over 100 years. You have a certain set of people that supply you with goods and services, whether it's Halliburton, Technips, Schlumberger, or whatever. And you know that to get your job done out there in the ocean is that everything has to be on time, within minutes, not hours and days, right? And you come to Guyana, and Stanley Ming comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to be a local content provider." And the first thing you would ask me is, "Here, how long you been in oil?" I said, "Well, you know, I started in 2015. And what you did since then, right?" I said, "Well, you know, I'm putting up a building and stuff." I mean, that got to be nonsensical on my part. What we need to do at Guyanese, right? We need to find people, the likes of Halliburton and Schlumberger and stuff. And the government needs to say to them, "Listen, if you're going to operate in Guyana, you have to find a local partner that will own 51% of the company and has assets, whether it's land that you need to build the facilities, and you need to start training Guyanese to work in that operation so that within the next 3 to 5 years, we have Guyanese that are capable of mirroring whatever it is that Halliburton is doing in Guyana. Then we will have real local content. But all we're doing right now is talking, right? We should have been from 2016, we should have been training Guyanese. It's 4 years gone. We should have had Guyanese, thousands of Guyanese trained by now. And say to Exxon, local content, this is what it got to be, because we now have people that can mirror what you need done in Guyana. But we haven't done that. All we're talking about local content, local content.
What are your views on the gas to shore pipeline?
Again, I wouldn't venture to say too much because I don't know enough to quantify what needs to be done or to qualify what needs to be done. But what I want to say, you know, you're talking about gas ashore, there has to be a lot of new industries that will utilize the surplus gas to make fertilizers and other chemical products, byproducts of the gas. And again, the government has to say to Exxon, this is what we want for Guyana. And this is the set of rules that we're going to set up and not be bludgeoned by anybody, Exxon or whoever else, into accepting what they say. And to understand that, let's look to Ghana, who has gone through this before, and other countries that Norway who've done this before, and say to them, come and tell us how you've succeeded, why, what is the deal you've done with Exxon, and learn from them. We don't need to start from ground zero and make all the mistakes. And that's what we seem to be doing.
Yeah, yeah. Stanley Ming with us here discussing the election of Aubrey Norton and other national issues as it relates to the economy and other aspects of our politics. Stanley, I know that 2 decades ago or so, when the push for power sharing was in on the front burner, Aubrey Norton was part of it. I know you were a supporter of that. Do you think that at the end of the day, that's where we have to go? Power sharing between and among the political parties and other forces?
David, it's not an option; it's an absolute necessity, right? I mean, let me tell you something that you may not know. Back in the 1990s, one morning, a few gentlemen walked into my office. I had just started Ming's Products and Services in Orcar Street at far from the Mendez. And then I came over to where I am now. They were from Suriname. And they said, we are here to set up a company in Guyana to represent John Deere and Komatsu, which is, all the tractors. And Komatsu is the Japanese equivalent of Caterpillar. And I didn't know them at all, but they said that the person who suggested to them knew me very well. I'd done business with him out of Holland. And I said to them, gentlemen, well, I will have to consult with that gentleman's name is Skelter Faber before I can tell you whether I'm interested in doing business with you. And I called them when they left, and I told them to come back the next day. And I spoke to the gentleman in Holland. And he said, Stanley, I've known the gentleman that you're talking about, the leader of the pack, Mr. Renger van Dijk, for more than 15 years. He worked for me. He headed my company. And he's a person of good character. You can take his word. And the next day they came and I joined forces with them. And we set up General Equipment Guyana Limited and subsequently Farm Supplies. Those 2 companies, David, are the representatives of John Deere, Komatsu, Doosan, Bobcat, and all the modern implements and agricultural machinery that was introduced in Guyana over the last 30-odd years. The beauty about that is I was able to go into a partnership with people who had the knowledge. They asked me to be the chairman, which I was for 20-something odd years. And it's only within the last few years I sold my shares to focus on what I'm doing at Perica that I'm out of the system. And those 2 companies made a tremendous contribution to rice, sugar, bauxite, gold, but people don't know. The other thing that I was involved in, again, I don't know if you know, but when David D. Carey and Miles Fitzpatrick came up with the idea, they wanted an independent press in 1985 when Mr. Hoyt became president. I was one of the partners and shareholders with David and Miles and the guy from Trinidad with The Guardian. And I got involved with that because I wanted an independent press for Guyana, because I think it was in the best interest of the country. So I will continue, David, to be involved in whatever is being done, whether it is by the PPP, whether it's by the PNC or whoever, that is in the national interest. I don't care which party you belong to. If Dr. Ali comes to me tomorrow with a request, I told that to Dr. Jagan. And I want to tell you something, David. This is so funny. In 1990, Dr. Jagan came into my office. I was over far from the Mendez. I was renting the upper level for $1,500 a month. You can't even buy a food now for that $1,500. And he said to me, Stanley, I'm here to ask you to sell me some motorcycles for the campaign that was coming up for the 92 elections. And within a matter of 15 minutes, he and I concluded what we had to do about business. And then he said to me, Stanley, I hope you're going to vote for me at the coming elections. So I smiled and I said to him, I said, Dr. Jagan, let me be honest with you. Everything I've heard about you as a person is credible. I said, I know your friends, Master Patrick and stuff. You're a decent, honest, and a well-meaning person. But I have a problem with your ideology. I said, communism has failed throughout Eastern Europe, the Soviet Union, and Cuba. And I cannot support an ideology like that. Nothing to do with race. It's the ideological that this thing don't work. So evidently he knew that I wasn't going to vote for him. And I'm not ashamed to say that, right? Because I was not prepared to see, a socialist communist system like what I knew existed there. So when he left, after he gave me a lecture of about 1 hour about his version of communism and socialism, I said, there goes the order in my mind. But within a matter of a week to 10 days, Dr. Jagan sent me an order for the motorcycles. Mm-hmm. Now, that is a very clear example of what magnanimity is all about. He didn't care that I was not going to vote for him. He felt that I was going to give him a service. And I told my staff, I said, whenever the PPP calls to have their motorbike service or repaired, drop everything you're doing and fix it, because I don't want anybody to say that because they're PPP and I am PNC, that, I ain't doing the work. Now, here's what happened. Prior to the 97 election, there was a meeting at the Freedom House to discuss equipment for the next election. And the people around the table, all of whom I wouldn't call names, discussed about Suzuki from Supplies, Honda from Marix, and this other brand. And Dr. Jagan said, but hold on, Mr. Ming with the Yamaha is the bikes we got right now, and we've gotten good service from everything I understand. Why are we not discussing Mr. Ming and Yamaha? And a certain individual said, you know who's Mr. Ming? That's my best friend. That's a big PNC man. You know what Dr. Jagan said? He did a good job. We will give him this order also. So that is what we have to aim for, David. Yeah. If you are PPP or PNC, if we're working together in the best interest of the country, it should not bother you whether I am PNC or PPP. We're working together for the common good of Guyana. And the joke was, when the bikes came, by which time Dr. Jagan had passed, President Jagan, right? An individual who came to sign up the documents and collect the bikes and stuff said to my manager, he says, tell Mr. Ming that no more business from the PVP because his friend dead. That thing. But that is a sad story about politics in Guyana.
Right, and it's something that we have to change. Stanley Ming there. Stanley, I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight. Any closing thoughts?
David, my desire, and I tell people every day, I'm 70 years old. If I'm around for another 3 to 5 years, I'm lucky. I want to see my children and my grandchildren have the Guyana that you and I dreamed about, where whether you are Indian ancestry, African, Amerindian, Chinese, Portuguese, you have a vested stake in the country. And David, I want to close in saying this to the public. 2 years ago, I subjected myself to an ancestry test, and this is it here, right? And if you see Cyril Stanley, Chinese and East Indian, 63.5, Southern European, Spanish and Portuguese, 13.9, West African, 13.5, and Indian, 7.8. So I have no option, David, other than to represent all of those races at the minimum. And somebody asked me the other day, how do you term yourself? What ethnicity or nationality are you? I said, boy, easy. I'm a mixed Chow Ming. everything mixed up. And I'm going to plead with the Guyanese at every level, not just the political level, because there are only a few. If the politicians are 1,000 total, what happened to the other 749,000? We are the ones that got the demand of the politicians that they work together to bring this thing that we call Guyana together as a nation. We can't continue with this stupid partisan politics. We will get nowhere.
We cannot continue. Thank you very much, Stanley, and I'm glad you came on tonight and to share your ideas and your thoughts with us. And we shall be calling on you as time goes on in the coming week. Thanks again.
Thanks,
Stanley.
David.
And we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we will continue with Politics 101.
I want to see Aubrey's involved.
Just mute it.
We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we will continue with Politics 101. And apparently my operator is not on the ball. In case you're just joining us, this is Politics 101. We've been talking with Stanley Ming, and we're awaiting Aubrey Norton, who's expected to come on for a one-on-one interview. I don't see him here yet, but we are slated to have Aubrey Norton, the new leader of the People's National Congress reform, on tonight. I think my operator is now ready for us to take a short break and then come back on the other side.
Please help keep Politics 101 on social media and broadcast television. If you are in North America, please donate via Cash App or PayPal. Please help keep Politics 101 on social media and broadcast television. If you are in North America, please donate via Cash App or PayPal.
If you are in Guyana and the Caribbean and don't have access to Cash App and PayPal, email your pledge to dhines6106@aol.com and we will direct you how to get your donation to us. Thank you in advance for your donation.
And welcome back to Politics 101. We have been chatting with Stanley Ming, former member of parliament and founder of the reform component of the People's National Congress. And we are expecting Aubrey Norton to join us anytime. I don't know what is keeping him back, but he should have been on by now, but we are waiting. You know, I suppose he's as busy as the new leader, any new leader gets. And we hope he's able to join us shortly. In the meantime, we have been following the news of the day. As you know, in a couple of days, we are going into Christmas, and the government is busy going around into communities and trying to distribute goodies to the communities. There has been a lot of hype since the PNC election this past weekend, and we have not seen any indication yet from the PPP as to how they intend to officially engage Aubrey Norton. What we've seen are videos circulating by the PPP in which they're trying to demonize Mr. Norton, trying to paint him as a violent person, trying to signal to the PPP support base that Norton is not good. So that's what we're seeing, and we've got no indication yet from the official PPP as to how they intend to proceed with Norton. But as you know, Norton captured the imagination of party delegates, and I suppose the wider base of the opposition, in calling for a more robust approach to dealing with the excesses of the government in office. Mr. Stanley Ming observed in our chat that he thinks that the president is sincere and that he wants to move the country in a very progressive direction. He was not sure that all the members of the PPP leadership are interested in going in that direction, but he feels that Mr. Mr. Ali, Dr. Ali, is of that view. I know that a number of you, most of you on this program, would not share that view. Given where you are located, you don't get that impression, I suppose. But Mr. Ming was speaking from where he is located, and he gets that impression. He has also said that he gets the impression that Mr. Norton is good for the PNC and for the country at this juncture, and we shall see. We shall see. I know that Mr. Norton has been welcomed into that position by the base, and we have to see how Mr. Norton will proceed. He has got the support on the ground. He has gotten the support in the PNC's executive. A majority of the executive seem to be supportive of him. So he has got the tools, and we now have to see how he proceeds. But we've not seen him here yet for tonight. I have not gotten any indication from my operator what's going on, but we are awaiting Aubrey Norton for the interview tonight. As I said, I know it's quite hectic. I've been seeing Perry was spoke yesterday at the Wreath Lane ceremony for former President Desmond Hoyt, who passed away December 22nd, 2002. It's 19 years. 19 years since Hoyt passed away. Norton served as General Secretary under Hoyt, and they did not have the best relationship, tempestuous relationship. Hoyt relieving Norton of the General Secretary's role, and famously saying that the General Secretary is the creature of the leader. And Norton's remarks yesterday were quite appropriate. He did not go negative. He was quite positive in his assessment of the contributions of Desmond Hoyt. we are hearing here that Aubrey Norton is on his way from Linden, and he apologizes for not being able to do the interview tonight, but asked that it be rescheduled for Tuesday. So that is what we're hearing here, that Norton got delayed in Linden, and he's now leaving Linden, and so he's not able to join us as scheduled. And he has asked to reschedule the interview for Tuesday. So I suppose that's bad news for those of you who've been looking forward to the interview, but those are things that are beyond our control, and I suppose that are beyond the control of the leader. He was supposed to have been back in town from Linden, but he's now on his way from Linden, and so he's not able to join us, and so he is asked to reschedule for Tuesday. So I want to apologize on behalf of Politics 101 to you for not having the interview tonight with Aubrey Norton, and we will reschedule for Tuesday. These things happen, you know. Public people get busy. Sometimes they schedule, get all caught up in different events, but he wants me to apologize to you profusely and to say he will join us on Tuesday. So there is where we are. So as we bring down the curtain on tonight's show, I want to wish all of you a Merry Christmas, and hope you try to enjoy what there is to enjoy. Here in Guyana, most people are saying they're not feeling the Christmas. They're not feeling the Christmas. Prices are very high, very, very high. I went to the market 2 days ago, and I saw the prices of items there, and I can attest. I can tell you, it's really, the prices are astronomical. But whatever can be done, do enjoy the Christmas. Those of you who are outside of Guyana, we know that Christmas in America and England and those places are not the same as Christmas in Guyana. But make do with what there is. Merry Christmas, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Thank you, and good night.
Please help keep Politics 101 on social media and broadcast television. If you are in North America, please donate via Cash App or PayPal.
If you are in Guyana and the Caribbean and don't have access to Cash App and PayPal, email your pledge to dhines6106@aol.com and we will direct you how to get your donation to us. Thank you in advance for your donation.